Greetings loved ones and welcome back to my channel. In this video I am going to be doing the third and final installment of my pregnancy recap series. So for those of you who maybe missed the past two episodes, I recapped my first trimester, my second, and now my third, as well as postpartum, kind of grouped together with this video so that I don't make a fourth video. I mean, I could, but it just felt right to kind of, in this postpartum period of time, also attach that, because the end of my third trimester was my birth. So you guys already saw that very exciting last video. Thank you for all of the love on my birth story. I loved being able to share that moment with you. And I also just really appreciated reading all of the comments. It was really sweet. So today I wanted to kind of round off my pregnancy content for my channel, at least for right now. You know, I'm going to be getting more into like motherhood content and more me focused, like postpartum healing and just my routines and what my life looks like now in my future vlogs. But I definitely don't want to alienate any of my viewers who never want to be pregnant and don't really care about that kind of content. And so I'm going to be trying to get back to, I guess, life is normal, but then also talking about motherhood as it feels relevant to me. At least that's my plan as of right now. So I'll be getting back to vlogs in my following videos after this one. But I wanted to, of course, not forget the third trimester, one of the most important trimesters in finishing all of this content off. So today I'm going to be reading you all of my list of symptoms and kind of just talking briefly about what I experienced per each week of pregnancy towards the end, and then into the fourth trimester, aka postpartum. But I wanted to say I am going to be just kind of chilling and reading this list off to you today, and I considered like cleaning my room while doing this, but my room is already clean, and so it just felt like, you know, I was looking for something to do while filming this, but it just feels right to kind of chill right now since I am postpartum. So let's just do that. In my first trimester video, I like decorated the tree and said my symptoms, and then in my second trimester video, I did second trimester, but also a Q&A. But I was like, you know what? The third trimester and postpartum just seems like the right thing for me. So enough of the chatter, let's dive in, starting with week 28. So around this time, I was mostly feeling the baby move a ton and just get more comfortable in my womb, and my belly started to feel and look a lot bigger, and I also could see her movements outside of my body. Like I would be able to feel her jiggling in there, but then I started taking videos of like her movements in me, which is so funny because watching those back, I'm like, wow, I understand why people are like, there's an alien in there. But she never really felt like an alien. She felt like my daughter, just kind of bouncing around like a little fish stuck in a bag, if you will. Week 29, I started to have forgetfulness / pregnancy brain. Around this time, I also started to develop hip pain, especially after prolonged sitting or sleeping. So I sleep on my side like this, and my hips being like stacked on top of each other like that. So this happens because of prolactin, which is a hormone that your body creates, and it gets, I believe, amped up during postpartum and during pregnancy, but I was having a lot of just like growing pains around this time. So it was helpful to, you know, have that explanation, I suppose, but it didn't make the pain any better, especially when I would sleep at night and then wake up in the morning and be like, I was supposed to be well rested, but now I'm kind of hurting. I also wrote in here, can't see my cat anymore. And I'm not talking about a pet cat, honey. Okay, my belly was just getting so big. Things were out of my eyesight range. Also on the aches and pains note, this is when my palms of my hands started to get sore, and I started to get kind of like carpal tunnel-like feelings in my wrists, in my back, my hips. Oh my God, it was just really causing some trouble sleeping. So that was not anticipated at the beginning of pregnancy. I didn't know that I would have such achiness in my joints. And speaking of pains, this was my most constant pain that started around week 31. Her feet, I thought, were in my left rib cage, but I also wrote, or it could be her body weight. I'm having pain there, and also my feet hurt if I stand for too many hours. Oh, the joys of end of pregnancy, just getting too big to be comfortable. But there were random bright sides, like I also wrote, sleeping much better this week though, and only waking up like 4 times a night compared to 10 plus. So that was deranged. And this next symptom correlates with a story that I want to tell. So it's pretty common during your third trimester and really your entire pregnancy to have your cervical cervical fluids change, okay? And I talked about this in my second trimester video, especially, like I could no longer go commando, all right? But basically, quick story time, I was making the bed, and this was before we had moved up into this bedroom, so our mattress was on the floor of like our living room of the wing downstairs. And I was stripping the sheets, making the bed, doing my damn thing, and when I was doing that, I felt like a trickle of liquid come out of me, and I was so scared that I was leaking amniotic fluid early, and I knew that that was pretty unlikely to happen, but that it was possible. And so then I started freaking out, and I was like, oh my god, what happened to me? And I took off my underwear and smelled them. This sounds so TMI, but like this is just pregnancy, honey. You never know what's gonna happen to you. And so I started freaking out, and I texted my midwives, and my midwife Rebecca was like, okay, is it cervical fluid or did you just pee yourself? It's highly unlikely for you to have amniotic fluid this early. So what did it smell like? Does it smell like ammonia? And I was like, yeah, it does kind of smell like ammonia. And she was like, all right, you just peed yourself, no worries. And this occurrence made me be like, oh, that's why people do pelvic floor exercises even during their pregnancy, not just postpartum, which I have started to do now, but I wasn't always doing them during my pregnancy. I mean, I was doing like, what is it? The 3 balances from spinning babies and stuff like that. And I was walking like a mile a day consistently and trying to stay active, but I wasn't doing like specific pelvic floor focused work. So sometimes you can have a little bit of incontinence. So what can you do, honey? But wanted to make you aware of that in case that happens to you. It was just a false alarm, but I was spiraling. And I remember that was occurring while Finley was out of the house, and I literally called him being like, I think I need you to come home. I think something horrible is happening. And it's like, okay, let's put a stop on the anxiety and just call it what it is. Piss in your pants. Also around this time, I started to develop insane foot and calf pain. They make recovery slide sandals. I believe the brand is pronounced UFOs. Hell, who knows? But I have those and I wear those all around the house now, and I have been since pregnancy, even when my feet were very swollen. I had to get a size up though, but my feet don't feel or look as swollen as they were during my pregnancy. Week 32 was a tumultuous week for emotions, and I wrote that because that was the week that we lost our pet pig, Peach, so it was just tumultuous in a lot of ways. I could just cry at the drop of a pin, honey. Also around this time, my libido definitely dropped, and I was dealing with vaginal dryness, which has never occurred to me in my entire life. So that was alarming. And normally, because I have a relatively high libido and never really have dealt with issues like that, it was shocking to me because in my second trimester, I was like unbelievably horny, like I was a 7th grade boy. So I don't understand, but it's just those hormones changing. Also around this time, the baby was somersaulting a lot, shaking herself around in there. I also started to develop stretch marks on my boobs. During week 33, I experienced more foot pain, more carpal tunnel, and I was waking up about 3 times a night to pee, and my left side pain was becoming constant. It wasn't just like, oh, today I feel the left side pain. It was always there. During week 34, my belly button started to become an outie, and I also got some red itchy bumps like under my bra line. That would happen to me on occasion where I had, you know, these like skin random issues or rashes, but they would always go away, especially with some calendula salve, stop the itching. It's great. So I just rubbed that on there. And during this time, I also started mouth breathing, and Finley told me that I was doing it when I slept as well, which was not a shock because I would wake up with my pillow covered in drool. So my nose was becoming so stuffed up that I had to breathe through my mouth, and that completely went away after I gave birth. Honestly, it went away even before I gave birth. I was really stuffy, probably up until week like 38, to the point where I was like, oh my God, is this ever gonna go away? And it did. So no worries if you're experiencing that. My hunger also increased so much around this time again, which I felt like it was kind of doubling down. Like my hunger had already increased in pregnancy and then it amped itself up. So that was deranged and unwell. I was definitely eating for 2, as they say. And in week 35, I said, not to be dramatic, but my left side pain literally feels like I pulled a muscle. It just keeps burning so much. Only icing it and Tylenol helps. And there was a couple of things during that phase where I was like, oh my God, is something wrong with me? I was like Googling what organs were underneath my rib cage. I was like, am I having kidney pain? What's wrong with me? But if you have right side pain during pregnancy, pregnancy under your rib cage, it is like a risk factor for preeclampsia or like a symptom of preeclampsia, but it wasn't on the right, it was on my left. And anytime that I had an ultrasound, I would just see the baby in all of her body weight just enjoying herself on the left side. So as a result, I was always sleeping on my right side because it was too painful to sleep on my left. I also still have this, but I developed a new skin tag on my neck, which is another common thing that happens during pregnancy that no one tells you about. New skin tags, new skin issues in general. I also said that I was finding it hard to not absorb negative birth stories because people will straight up just tell you them whether you prompt them or not. Like, it was getting to the point where I was so big, it was very noticeable that I was pregnant. If I went out to get my nails done or went to the grocery store or just did anything about town, some random person would be like, oh, just a couple more weeks now. I remember when I had my first and I shit my pants and I did X, Y, and Z. It's like, what are you talking about? I didn't ask, you know what I mean? So I just would be like, sure. And I also was having heartburn around this time. I would always have heartburn if I had tomatoes, which was so weird. Like, that never happened to me when I would eat tomatoes not during pregnancy, and it's not happening to me postpartum, but your stomach just gets so cramped up in there once your baby gets bigger. All of your organs are like just cramped and stuffed, shoved under your rib cage. So gastrointestinal issues, farting a lot, just having general stomach problems or heartburn and all that stuff is relatively common. Week 36, I wrote that I absolutely cannot hang like I used to. I'm lethargic, my feet and my back and my sides hurt if I stand too long, etc. And I think I wrote that because I had my pregnancy shoot and I was really putting on brave face for Emma, my photographer, and being like, yeah, I can do this. Let's go get the shot. Let's do a long walk into the woods to shoot by the pond on our property, all these types of things. And then at the end of the day, I was like, oh my God, I feel like I've been hit by a bus. I mean, I was just exhausted. I needed to take a nap on that day. I also wrote that my PCOS facial hair started going even more insane, and honestly, all of my body hair just got thicker. I never got the linea nigra, I believe it's called, a dark line from your belly button to the top of your vagina. It's kind of just like your skin darkening there, and some people develop a happy trail. I already had a happy trail, so it's not like that was abnormal for me, but it definitely got darker. I also started to get hot flashes around this time, honey, and it was horrible. I was sweating a lot under my armpits, on my feet, and between / under my boobs. Whew, I would get my nails done and be like, y'all got a fan in here? Like those little fans that they use to dry your nails at the station. I would ask them to like point it on me. So ask for what you need. People just want to make you feel comfortable because you feel so uncomfortable all of the time. I also felt like during this week 36, my libido started to raise again and I finally had less dryness, which was a slay. But I understand that a lot of people when they're pregnant, they're like, don't touch me. I'm not even interested in anything sexual at all, but I would kind of come and go with those feelings. And then I started breaking out on my thighs again, which had happened in early pregnancy. And I was like, why is this occurring again? Just acne, skin problems. Why do our bodies do these things? Couldn't tell you, honey. Week 37 was when I started to show early labor signs, aka I was poopy and crampy. I started to feel like I was having menstrual cramps and I was just going to the bathroom all the damn time. My nipples also started darkening around this time to like a purplish color rather than pink like they normally were. And they also started burning again, which was like an early pregnancy sign for me, probably around weeks like 4 through 6. Like my nipples and my boobs would just burn, but they started burning again, I believe, because my milk ducts were starting to kind of get to work, because my boobs do burn sometimes now as I'm lactating. My emotions were running wild. Every morning during that week, I woke up a bit crampy, but it would go away when I ate and drank coffee and pooped. It's so funny talking about bowel movements online. Like I wanted to say, and then I had a bowel movement, because it feels like a little bit better than just saying that I pooped, but whatever. We're getting into all the nitty gritty, honey. These are supposed to help you. If you're going through pregnancy, it's supposed to help you feel like, oh, I'm less alone in that, or know what to expect if you ever want to become pregnant. That's the intention, okay? Week 38, I started to have a headache, which is also an early labor sign, but I thought that it was maybe from not drinking my electrolyte packets for like 2 days because I forgot. No. that was not the case. But I was being like, oh, the electrolyte packets, my element packets, they have magnesium in them, and I was having them every day during my pregnancy. So I thought the lack of magnesium correlated to giving me a migraine, but no, it was just early labor. And speaking of supplements, this is when the teeth thing happened. And if you watch some of my recent vlogs or you follow me on TikTok, you know what I'm talking about, but my liquid iron started to stain my teeth brown. And I said, FML, I might need to switch to taking a pill or stop taking it at all. So during my early third trimester, I had gotten an iron lab done for blood work, and I was like 1.2 low on the scale. So my midwives were like, you could start taking an iron supplement. Maybe you start drinking Floridix. Got it at my co-op, brought it home, read the box briefly, but this is when pregnancy brain comes into play, okay? Because all I looked at on the box was like, how much do I take? I didn't really see that you should drink it with a straw, one, and two, you should mix it into something. I was literally just putting it in the cup, however much I was supposed to take a day, and shooting it back, and then just like drinking some water to get the taste out of my mouth. But you are fully not supposed to do that. So because it was hitting my teeth constantly, it was staining my teeth a brown color, which people started to realize in the vlogs and ask me about it. And at first I was just so confused why it was happening, and I was like giving a bunch of other reasons because I thought it was other reasons, and then I was like, oh my god, what did I introduce in the third trimester? Yeah, the liquid Floridix supplement. Need to stop that. Anyway, long story short, I got the stains buffed away, and then they started to come back, but that was because I think of my protein shakes that I was drinking also around this time, Orgain chocolate shakes, and I wasn't drinking them with a straw, so I believe that's why it started to come back a little bit, not as bad as it was the first time from literally just putting like iron directly on my teeth. I don't know, this is like honestly just a theory, but I stopped drinking the shakes and now my teeth are pearly white, so who knows? And it's been a couple of weeks since I had the stains removed a second time at the dentist. Needless to say, this was really annoying, okay? Not only because people were noticing it in vlogs and it made me insecure and have like dental insecurity, which I'd never experienced in my life, but it also just made me feel stupid, like why didn't I read the box? Anyway, my midwives were fine with me stopping taking the iron supplement, and my iron levels are fine now. Also around this time, I started to have pelvic and perineum pressure, and I could feel her when I was sitting down. I remember we went over to our friend's house one night to play board games. We played Ticket to Ride, and we were sitting, and I just the entire time was so uncomfortable. It's like I could feel all of the weight of her in my perineum. It was just a lot. So was definitely like, all right, she is dropping. And my hands and feet started to swell so much more when it started to get really hot because I was gonna have a summer baby, but my blood pressure was still low, so it wasn't like pre-eclamptic. But I wrote, good thing I let my ring out a half size. Before I got pregnant, I went and got my rings loosened, and I'm so happy I did that because they were getting very tight on my stubby little fingers. And my feet were swelling so much at the end of pregnancy. I took a photo of them and it was so scary. I'm not even gonna put it on the screen. It was like I had no ankle, nothing tapered in anymore. It was just like one big line. I would just do legs up the wall, and whew, yeah, it was a lot. And then I wrote that the night of May 15th, so this was about a week before I gave birth. I gave birth on 5/23, spoiler alert. But the night of the 15th, I woke up at 4 a.m. really crampy, and they felt stronger than usual, and they eventually stopped for me to fall asleep after I pooped. But I would never poop in the middle of the night, so that was very strange to me. I would normally wake up about 3 times in the night to pee. Towards the end of my pregnancy, that was normal for me, but pooping in the middle of the night, honey, that was not normal. So I was like, what's happening? I think I might be showing more early labor signs, and I was. My back started aching a lot as well, more early labor signs, and I also became so insanely gassy, like I can hear the gas just making such loud noises from outside of my stomach. Like after I ate something, the gastrointestinal issues were just, they were going off. And then this is just really TMI again, but I'm just, like I said, this is supposed to be a TMI video to help you understand what to expect. This was days before my water broke. I had lots of soft poops. So I was just keeping an eye on things. I said, this is interesting, because my midwives would ask questions like that. Every time I saw them, they would be like, how are your bowels? And I would tell them. And the day before my water broke, my stomach was so uncomfortable. I could feel her really low in my body. Actually, the day before my water broke, I went to the dentist to get the iron staining removed on my teeth. And I was sitting in the dentist chair and talking to my hygienist, love her work, we always chat it up. And I was like, you know, trying to put on a brave face for her, being like, oh, LOL, Miranda, we're just chilling. But I was so uncomfortable in that chair. I could not figure out how to sit or lay. And later that night, I said to Finley and my mom, I feel like birth is imminent. And then she was born 39 weeks and 2 days. So that was my third trimester. And then now let's get into postpartum. I do want to say that I have a postpartum highlight on my Instagram where I tried to be as real as possible about the things I was experiencing in real time. Okay, so I would share little bits and bobs about my life. So week 1 was a mixture of sleepiness and lots of emotions, but so much joy. I was so sleep deprived. We both were. We were like, what's going on? But at the same time, it was just like so lovely to have her in the room with us and just, you know, learning her and starting to learn her cues and all of those amazing things that make you very emotional. So it was just a lot all at once. What is that movie called? Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. That's what it was like. And then my midwives warned me about this day, okay? Day 3, after you birth your baby, around this time when your milk comes in, you can be very weepy and just very tender. And it was just very like vulnerable. And I was very, I wouldn't say on edge because that almost makes it sound like I was paranoid, but it was kind of like I would cry at so many things. Like I would just look at her and cry, or Finley would say something to me that was like nice and sweet. And I would just look at him and be like, that was so nice. Like seriously, that was so nice. Just start crying over like normal things that are occurring in the world. And then I wrote, when my milk really came in, my boobs felt really heavy, like sandbags, and they were a bit sore, but I found relief taking a hot shower and pumping for 10 minutes. But I've also heard that getting like a rolled up washcloth and kind of like wringing it down, like pulling it down your boob, kind of helps as well to alleviate that. So just so you know. But yes, I had sandbag titties. It was really a lot. I mean, I already have big boobs, but they were like, achy, you know, even more than like period boobs. Also, this is normal and maybe sounds TMI too, but I lost some blood clots in the first few days and I was in diapers for the first week and then I transitioned to wearing maxi pads and that was fine for me, but some people will bleed heavier and for longer. And then week 2, my bleeding started to become more like old blood, like brown blood. And my head and my neck and my shoulders started to hurt when I wasn't supported properly with my pillow prop ups because I just stared down at my baby while I would breastfeed her. And around that time I ordered a husband pillow because I needed the back support and the neck support. And still even now I'll get like a sore shoulder or something if I'm like really hunched over, and I'm still trying to be mindful of it. Even in this video I've been like hunching and then I'm like, I need to get back up, okay? But yeah, the breastfeeding posture is just, it's a lot, okay? I just need to be aware of it, 1, and 2, there are like posture correcting kind of exercise videos that you can do, so I'm starting to like slowly work those in, but we'll get into that later. I wrote early on that I thought that I would be sweatier, like I would wake up kind of warm and sweaty, but nothing was soaking through onto my underpad. I slept with underpads in the bed for so long, which were in my midwife birth kit, and those were so great. I highly suggest having underpads for your bed because then you can like leak milk everywhere and bleed and, you know, sweat and do all of the bodily functions that you need to do. But everybody had told me like, oh, the postpartum sweats are insane. And probably by the first, you know, 2 weeks, I was like, where are my postpartum sweats? I mean, I'm hot because it's summer, but I'm not like drenching anything. Sorry if the angle changed. My camera died. But boy, oh boy, did I have things in store for me after saying that. Like, where is the sweat? Of course it was gonna come after I said that, right? Because then on day 13, I wrote, woke up so much sweatier, I would feel drenched upon waking up. And also, let me just say, if you have a summer baby, it is so difficult to baby wear around that time, like having her in her like cloth wrap. I have a Moby wrap, which I love, but even having her in there, I would have to like, you know, you're supposed to dress in like light layers and have baby in light layers so that you don't get so stuck and sweaty together. But I would only be able to baby wear her for like a small amount of time before we were both like, all right, whew, we are sticking together like peanut butter and jelly. Also, I started to get some hives around this time, which I knew would be normal, having postpartum hives. I think I had seen one of my other friends talk about it, but it was like hives on my ankles and the bottoms of my feet. It was not from like bugs from walking around outside or anything. I wasn't really doing a lot of that around this time, so I was pretty confused about that, but they did end up going away. I was filming with the natural lighting for a while, but it's getting really dark and gloomy outside because a storm is a-brewing. I need to start rushing. I wrote days 18 to 20, it started to hurt to poop, and I didn't realize how common this is until I posted about it on Instagram, and so many people were like, oh my god, postpartum bowel movements are just so tough. Take stool softener if you can. But it also meant that I was a little bit dehydrated, but I also realized that because I had been basically on bed rest for like almost 3 weeks around this time, I think also, this is what my mom said. She's a physical therapist and she saw a lot of people who had just been on bed rest and needed to be rehabilitated. She's retired now, but basically she was texting me around this time being like, I think that it might just be, this sounds so TMI, but like compacting because you're sitting in bed so much. And I'm not saying not to sit in bed, okay? But maybe like lie in bed or do some gentle movement around the house, because once I started to do a little bit more gentle movement or like walking around the yard or walking up and down the driveway and doing those types of things really just helped so much in this area. And something that happens when you have a baby is you have after birth contractions when you nurse or when the baby cries, and a lot of kind of different times, like when your milk comes in and stuff. And even around like 3 weeks out, sometimes I would still cramp when I nursed, but it would be mild. And now I don't cramp at all, but After Ease tincture is amazing and I highly recommend for postpartum. 21 days out, I had small breakouts around my mouth. Sometimes I still do get kind of hormonal acne around my mouth and chin. I also had a dry, itchy scalp, which hasn't really continued, but it was an early symptom. And then this was just like the pain era. I had joint pain in my left knee. Thank you again, prolactin. I had back pain and hip pain when sleeping like I did during my 3rd trimester, rib pain under my left boob, sharp pains in my left heel, and I was just confused about it all. I told my midwives about it at our 6 to 8 week postpartum visit, and they were like, yeah, that is all normal. There's some stretches that you could do to alleviate it. They showed me how to do them. Also, apart from the pain, I also had breakouts on my right arm and my left thigh, probably from sweat. A lot of the time is the cause of these weird breakouts in different areas. And then also, this still sometimes happens, but not as badly as it was during this time, but I was so insanely gassy and I could not find any correlation through my food logs. And so I told my midwives that at the visit, and they were like, okay, listen, your stomach just gets so cramped up in there during pregnancy, and as you start to kind of expand more and your organs are starting to drop again, if you will, and go back to their normal positioning, you will have some farting, okay? And I thought that it was like a symptom of pelvic floor therapy that I needed to get. And obviously pelvic floor therapy is amazing to have if you want to do that. And I have been doing some light pelvic floor therapy exercises now that I'm cleared to work out and stuff like that. But yeah, I was very confused about that. I was like trying to log all of my foods because I was like, well, it has to be something that I'm eating. It has to be, you know, the typical gassy foods like beans or brassicas or other things like that, and it was just not. When I woke up as well, my hips would hurt as well as my butt cheeks, but in the lower area, almost where like the butt cheek tissue meets the thigh, and I was having a little bit of numbness as well. And again, my midwives were like, that's totally normal. Here are some stretches that you can do. But I think it's really because, you know, your hips have to expand for your baby to come out, and then they have to like readjust to normal living, and also the prolactin, again, our best friend. And then on the 10th of July, I thought that I got my first period postpartum because I had a backache and a little bit of cramping and new red blood, but only for like 2 days. I got it on like a Wednesday. It was actually on the day of my postpartum visit with my midwife. So I told them about it and they were like, no, you got your period postpartum already? Because when you're breastfeeding, I'm pretty sure that it's like 1 in 5 breastfeeding parents will have their period return within the first 6 months. So getting it at like 6 or 7 weeks was absurd. And my midwives were like, what? I mean, this happens to people sometimes, but I didn't expect it to happen to you, kind of a thing. And I was like, totally, me either. Is it happening? Who knows? And I told them the symptoms and they were like, yeah, it does sound like you're having your period. That's so strange. But then it only lasted for 2 days. So then after that, I told them and checked in being like, yeah, I only had like new red blood for 2 days and then it went away. And they were like, maybe it was just, again, post-birth bleeding that just kind of came back, or maybe never happened and your body was just trying to get it all out. So I don't think that I actually got my period yet. I'm pretty sure I didn't, but I guess we'll see in like a month from now if anything happens or comes back. And then around week 8, which is pretty much where I am right now, I'll be 9 weeks out postpartum in like 2 days. Actually today, my baby is 2 months old. So woohoo! But week 8, I wrote I was having more hormonal acne around my mouth and on my chin and neck, and I started and am still feeling more normal emotionally speaking and ready to return to workouts, but taking it slow. And I'm still sort of bleeding. So that's annoying. It's just more, like I said, old brown blood. And who knows when it's gonna stop, but that's happening, and that's my body postpartum right now. So trying to take it slow, still nourishing my body really well, taking nice care of myself. And speaking of just like taking care of my body and all those kinds of things, I am trying to get back to working out very slowly, but also at the same time, I'm not like trying to get my body back. You know what I mean? It's just slow, gentle movement that I think would be nice for me. Pelvic floor exercises, posture correcting things for postpartum, more like yoga and Pilates, trying to walk a lot. And yeah, I'm looking forward to getting back to Zumba eventually, but I also don't entirely feel ready yet for high intensity cardio, so we're just figuring it all out, okay? But that being said, I'm going to continue figuring it all out and getting into vlogs in the coming weeks, so I can't wait to chat with you more. Who knows what the vlog will look like now that I'm, you know, having my baby in my life, but also trying to protect her privacy and also share my life. It's gonna be an interesting ride, but we're gonna figure it out together. I really hope these videos just land with the right crowd. Even if you're not pregnant, you can save these videos for later. I have a playlist of pregnancy videos on my channel, and just come back to them and see symptoms that I experienced and maybe you will experience. Who knows? Every pregnancy is different because every body is different, but I really, really hope that these come in handy because it's just nice to not feel alone in anything that you're experiencing. So if you are newly postpartum, I'm right here with you, honey. I got a lot of pregos who follow me, actually. I realized that when I was asking some questions on Instagram. I was like, oh my God, I didn't know how many of you were pregnant right now. Incredible. And I wish you the best of luck on your deliveries. You're gonna do great and amazing. And I'm so proud of you for carrying a baby this far along. It is really a lot. I mean, as you can see from all of the third trimester symptoms, like, whew, things are just happening and your body is growing and changing and adapting, and I am just so proud of you. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Stay smiling. Bye, y'all.